Getting another SCV scout in, trying to figure out what this guy's up to. Do not see a lair, so I'm a little suspicious. Maybe late bailing bust. Seems like a late lair. But that is because he went for a massive economic build. He actually built this hatchery as soon as he saw I went for a fast expand, and then he built this hatchery on 17. So he's actually up to 3 hatcheries now. And whereas Harvester count hasn't really taken a gigantic lead, he will be ahead for most of the match. And I think at one point he pumps like 20 drones at once and takes a huge lead. But at the same time, I think I'm playing very well this match, not getting myself supply capped. I actually pulled up some resources early, and where that's normally a bad thing, it allowed me to have the extra resources to just do a massive queue up on my fortress and my orbital command. So there's going to be no breaks in my SCV production. So this is obviously a screw up, and had he been attacking right now, it would be rough. But since he's not attacking this early, this little mess up on my macro is not going to hurt me at all. In fact, it may even help me a little bit as it allows me to queue up. And queuing up is a bad thing typically because you're spending money you're not actually using for a while. But if you have the resources for it, it basically guarantees that you have instantaneous production going. Non-stop production going, we'll say. Continuous production. How about that word? That's a good one. Zergling's coming out, blowing out his 4th. You can see he's at about 15 harvester lead. Well, not quite. 10 harvester lead now. And if we bring up the units tab, you can see he's got 56 drones and just these 17 Zerglings. So he doesn't even have like 300 minerals worth of Zerglings, but went for a massive drone pump. And that's why this is so scary, because I have nothing I can do about that. I mean, my only thing I can do is try to get my own economy somewhat in the neighborhood of his, but yeah. And building my command center to take my 3rd. I will be taking my 3rd here. If you saw my previous video about how this natural sucks. It's so much better to take this one. Leave these rocks up and you're defended there. Throw some sort of building in here and you're defended here. Decide to use my scouting factory for, blocking this off rather than scouting. And since I've been so good on my SCV production, it looks like I'm actually catching up in harvester count. So I think as well as myself playing well this game, it looks like the Zerg player could have actually done a little bit better. I'm guessing he could have had his harvester count up around 80 right now if he really wanted to. And this one I'm ready to push. A little bailing harass on my SCVs won't work because of that wall off. At the same time blowing out this expansion. And I did just hit 1,000 minerals again, but again, not that bad. I'm throwing down more barracks, I believe. No, not quite. Still in 5 barracks. So 1,500 in the bank, mostly because I just kind of lapsed on my production here for a moment. I think anytime I'm doing anything else, it's hard for me to remember to do, continue making units, continue making SCVs. Looks like I slipped out there without him noticing, which is pretty nice. And coming down into his base. He's trying to surround with his Zerglings. I do pull my Marines to the back here, so it looks like my Marauders took the brunt of that attack. I think some of the very final bailings got to my Marines, but that's alright. A lot of them blew up on my Marauders, and a lot of them were taken down by Marauders. And I have a small force left over, only 6 Marines and 3 Marauders, but that's better than nothing, so what she has. So I'm actually going to pick off his base. Don't even have enough units to kill his fleeing drones, but I do kill a handful of them. Another wailing, so I stim up for that. And with medevacs and 1 armor, Zerglings aren't going to do a whole lot. Notice I went right up against his hatchery, that way he won't be able to surround. Hatchery is down, and he's blocking my expansion. He did catch some long distance mining SCVs. Now I am able to clear it, I land it, turn this into a fortress, and you can see how well defended this can be. Now I can just queue up my barracks to this zone right here, turn this into a fortress, and I'm well defended, and he really doesn't have much room to come around back. If I take this El Nog, I can basically spot any run-bys this direction, but even if he runs by, my army is pretty close. I can always close off this wall here. And this is what I was talking about by making this bailing proof. You can see I can still exit because I got 2 supply depots, but if he were to bailing bust me, he'd have to either blow through a really tough barracks, or he'd have to blow through a supply depot, then go through this small crevice, then blow through another supply depot. Either way, it's not going to work out well. So I like this double door entrance idea. Not only does it stop the bailing blast, but keeps the cost down on your heating bills as well. And now getting my high yield saturated, so we can actually see our harvester count is even. And our income's pretty even, at least once my mules disappear, it'll be even. So I'm in nice shape here, and I got an army advantage, I believe. Let's go to the army. Yeah. And go to the units lost tab. He's lost about 3,000 minerals more than I have. I did want to kill off that creep tumor, but I realized I didn't have any scan left because I wasted all these mules. A little behind on upgrades this game. If we look at my upgrades here, I got about halfway done. Yeah, so I'm at 2-1. We'll be approaching 3-2. I think when I went for the 2-2 upgrades, I didn't actually have the Vespian for some reason, so unfortunately my armor got left behind, which is too bad. Armor is amazing versus Zerglings. Not useful at all versus Bailings, but good versus Zerglings. Looks like he's loaded up some Bailings into his Overlords. A little Bailing drop on top of me, it's always a good thing. Moving in from the side. Unfortunately, he's going to have his time pretty poorly. I'm going to get to snipe almost all his Ultras. And now he's going to drop the Bailings. Kind of spread out. So, I think had we been even army counts, that could have worked, but I think just my gigantic army advantage and the fact that I kind of got to fight his Ultras prior to his Bailing drop gave me a big win. And I do have 8 barracks down now, so I am able to pump in units pretty quickly. Should probably be throwing down more expansions at this point, but I kind of feel like I have the game won, so I've just kind of stopped playing the game. But you can see I'm going to pull up resources if I don't. This is normally where I'd be expanding, maybe throwing down a couple more, 2 or 3 more barracks. Pull back the Marines anytime you see the Bailings. Always a good way to handle that. And that is GG. So I was very interested after this game how the Zerg felt about it, so I talked to Regs a little bit. Learned a couple things. One, actually, when he scouted my 2 quick refineries in my base, he assumed I was going for fast factories. Of course, I only do this to get the fortress quickly. So that may have been the reason why he actually built a bunch of spine crawlers. I think he had 2 there and another 2 here. So that's some minerals and some that weren't spent on drones, and some drones that had to be turned into spine crawlers. So that helped me a little bit. He may have also gone for the wrong unit composition to start, just because he was worried about, I don't know, tanks, Hellions. And just from watching this replay, I guess he could have drone pumped a little bit harder, but I think as long as I play perfectly and I push out with my first 4 medevac pile, I can be in good shape. As long as I'm on top of my macro, but yeah, more or less, oops, forgot to queue these guys up. Train of thought. Yeah, more or less, I think when Zerg does it, they're double expand as a response to my quick expand, I'm definitely behind. And I basically had to play catch up. Is it an automatic loss for me versus a decent Zerg player? That I don't know yet. Is there an adjustment that I can do to my game? That I don't really know yet. But for now, I think I'm just going to stick with the strategy of, okay, you're going for 3 bases. I'm just going to macro as hard as I can off of my 2. get my army at its peak, which is kind of like 1-1 upgrades in the first 4 medevacs, and then push out and try to bring the game at least back to even, if not a lead for myself. And you can't underestimate how hard it is for the Zerg player too. I mean, it must be very difficult for a Zerg player to say, okay, I got 70 drones and 8 Zerglings. I mean, it must be hard to actually confidently get in that spot. It's like when he's at 60 drones, can he really say to himself, okay, should I be building more drones even though I got only 8 Zerglings? I think a lot of Zerg players will naturally just kind of overdo themselves and not take the economic lead. So it must be very tough actually for Zerg to play this perfectly against my build. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have any conclusions in this video. It's more just a couple games, one that went well, one that went poorly, just to talk about my greatest fear. And of course Protoss can do the same thing as well by chrono boosting their nexuses hard. They can actually do a pretty economic response and expand. I've seen that as well. And again, I've had similar results where either they overrun me or my opening push will bring it back to even or give me the lead and then I can win it late. Yeah, so I think this is probably the only downside to my fast expand build order, is that you basically cannot put on pressure for a long time. In terms of the rushes, I got them all handled more or less. I'm not worried about any sort of Zealot rush, Zergling rush, Bailing bust, Stalker rush. I mean, Blink Stalkers in the back of my base. I think as long as I do my build properly, I can handle all those different things. So yeah, I think with that, I'm going to call it the end of this video. Yeah, probably something you don't have to worry about if you're not in Diamond League yourself, but if you ever think you'll become like top echelon, well, not top echelon, but like, you know, kind of my level with this build order, this is something you're going to have to worry about long down the road. Top players really like to beef up their economy to the max that they can do. And that's one of the skills of top players. It's scouting your opponent, not only to counter their unit composition, but to try to stay ahead economically. Basically, your idea is to go all out economy no matter what, and just get just enough to hold off whatever your opponent's doing. And that way, if you can stay ahead in economy, you win the game. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to call it the end of this video. Thanks everyone, and goodbye.